What do you like best about, or what do you think, speaking to other people who might be listening, if they were, maybe they're still where you were, they're using the Excel spreadsheets and they're using Google Docs and they're using whatever to just manage it. What, any advice for them as far as like, and not necessarily in your industry, more in a macro perspective, like what would you say? Because there's got to be tremendous ROI with what you're, the system you built. Would you encourage them to tap into that, to go find it? Or would you say just keep doing it until a certain point? Like, what would you maybe say to them?
Yeah. Well, the oil and gas industry specifically requires a high level of almost traceability and documentation, and like even things like procedures and policies, like having quick access and the guys know exactly, I got to go to the safety folder, I got to click this, click down, boom, 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 you're there. And, other things like our CRM, our customer resource management, is all tied into the same software as well. So, it really has two things. It saved us a lot of time and energy. And when you have Excel files and all that stuff, you're constantly editing them and then you get different versions of them kicking around. And that's been a real struggle. So it saves you a whole bunch of time and energy. You're far more organized. Like the analytics we could pull out of this, it's just really helped us understand our company and understand our customers, who they are, where they are. Every job is tracked and logged and categorized, and so there's a whole lot of intelligence you can get out of it as well.
Mm-hmm. And today, my guest is Aldean Sehlstrom with VersaLine Services. Welcome to the show, Aldean, got it right there. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking time to talk to us today and share some operational wisdom. This is a show where we like to talk about those things that sometimes happen in boardroom conversations and just don't get outside of the office to be shared with other people. And I'm a big believer that a rising tide lifts all ships. And so hopefully it's like all the shows, there's some nuggets that stand out to people here today. And why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role and VersaLine?
Sure. Well, I've grown up and lived in central Alberta my whole life. I'm a farm boy originally. Alberta is where we called home, about 9 miles northeast of there. And I went from high school pretty much straight into the workforce, and did a few odd little things, sold some cars, was a meat cutter for a while, tried out some different stuff. And then I got into the oil patch at about 19 years old. So that was, 1995, and been there ever since. So I've been a wireline guy, oil and gas well servicing ever since.
That's great. So in your line of work, VersaLine, tell us a little bit about VersaLine. What do you guys do?
Well, so wireline is basically deploying downhole tools for all different sorts of interventions or maintenance or diagnostics or testing. One of the things about VersaLine we're pretty proud of is how diversified we are. There's I don't think many of our competitors can say they do as broad a range of services that we do from all aspects of wireline. It's a pretty big scope. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things we can do downhole, and we're pretty proud to say we're kind of the one-stop shop.
Great, yeah, and just for our audience's sake, it's in the oil and gas industry primarily, correct? Or do you work outside of that sometimes?
No, exclusively. So everything we do is far below the surface, and involves either electronics or explosives or mechanical manipulation or, digital, a lot of logging, downhole logging to check well integrity and diagnose problems,
sure,
all that sort of stuff. So it's been a very interesting career because every day can be a new problem to solve. And if you're like me and love problem solving, it always keeps you on your toes. That's for sure.
We deal with things that have a lot of repercussions if you don't get it right. So yeah.
Yeah, it can.
Imagine. So what's a typical day look like for you? And maybe, we're always you can take and be broad about it, but you always think of operationally speaking, of course.
Well, if I'm being honest, it starts with the coffee and a walk in the park with my dog. And she comes to work with me pretty much every day. And then it's just, a lot of office time, a lot of driving time, a lot of, really my job is at this point is about coordinating and working with the team. And we got one heck of a good team here. So as things have progressed, I started as an owner operator, and it seemed pretty easy at the time when you're small and you're out there, you're the face. And then as you grow it took me a while, but finally learned that it ain't going to work unless you got some good people surrounding, and we've managed to do that. So it's dealing with people a lot. It's dealing with the banks, the accountants, the lawyers, the just all the little details. Kind of still a man of many hats, but definitely a lot more support behind me
Yeah, a lot of moving
now than
parts,
ever.
I'm sure. How many people work at Versaline?
We're up to about 80. We started the year with 50, and just through some acquisitions and stuff, we're up to about 80 now, and we expanded our geographic base up into northeastern BC into Fort St. John. So
Okay.
that's been an exciting little adventure so far for us, and it's working out really well.
That's great. Yeah, it's great. So, what part of your work energizes you the most right now?
Well, I'm a guy that doesn't do well with a lot of monotony and a lot of status quo. I like to be doing different things, and I enjoy challenge. I enjoy the variety. Even some days, you have people issues or operational issues and stuff, and they can be stressful and frustrating at the time. But for me, the real carrot is working through the problem and getting to see the results on the other side. And sometimes they're not always good results, but they're still results, and you learn something from
Right,
them.
right. Yeah, I think that there's a nugget there, right? For sure. As long as you're learning something from them, right? So, how
Yeah, try not to do the same mistakes twice.
yeah, exactly. And how
Yeah.
long it takes you to have to rinse and repeat until you finally get it right. So, how would you describe the structure or systems of your company? You got 80 employees, so you must have some business systems and you're all leaning
Well,
on a lot on a
um,
daily basis.
yeah, we have an amazing controller and an amazing a financial controller and an amazing contract CFO, and we have an amazing operations team. We've over the past 4 or 5 years here, we've been working on streamlining our software. There's a lot of documentation and paperwork and certification, and we've got every year we have to recertify literally hundreds, most maybe even thousands of individual items, just the tracking of that and making sure that nothing gets missed. So there's a local company called Field Pro that has built a software package for us, and
Mm-hmm.
and now they're pretty common within the industry. Over the last 5 years, we were their first client, and
Mm,
they helped us get to where we wanted to be. And they'd had some past experience in other industries,
mm-hmm.
or not other industries, but other segments of the oil and gas sector.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're just doing fantastic, and they've built a wonderful product. So that's helped us with, our safety and integration. And what our goal was to try and get everything that our field staff need on a day in one operations
Mm-hmm.
platform. So they're not looking for an Excel sheet here
Right.
or a Word document there or a thing like that. So everything's kind of an all in one
Right.
package. So that's a pretty
I
big
can
process.
imagine.
Our industry is unique in the fact that we don't get a lot of notice for our work. It can change from day to day. We're not planning weeks in advance for the most part. We're lucky if we get a couple days in advance, so it can be a little bit stressful at times because it looks like you got nothing on the books, and then all of a sudden you got more work than you can cover, and so it's a very dynamic industry for sure.
Wow. Yeah, that keeps you hopping.
If that
I can
answers,
see why having a system
yeah.
like that they built for you would be critical. If you had it a long time before that, I can imagine it was pretty stressful, right? Not having.
Yeah, before that, and you go through all these little hiccups and stuff, and we had a significant incident issue once, and one of the gaps we recognized is that one piece of equipment slipped through the crack on analysis, and so we had to plug the hole, and along with a whole bunch of other benefits, this software package really does a
Yeah.
nice job for us. It gives us alerts and heads up when things are coming due, and yeah, it's been a real time saver and kind of a little bit of confidence that the cracks won't get missed
Yeah,
again.
in we work with a lot of manufacturers and software, and they would call it an ERP system. I assume. I don't know if they call it that in your world, but it sounds like that's what it is. It's kind of your enterprise resource planning. It just basically runs everything, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Like from our fleet to our assets to our field ticketing to our safety program to, oh gosh, like we're working towards it being like our purchasing software as well, and inventory and things like that. So we're not quite there yet, but the more we can bundle things up into one package, it easier it is to tie it all together
I
and
agree.
and then analytics we get out of it are
Oh, that's awesome.
fantastic. So, if anyone ever wants a great oil and gas service product, I can definitely point them in the
Right,
right
right.
direction.
And that was funny. You kind of answered it. I was going to ask where your systems maybe are a little disconnected, and you sort of leaned into that and said, "Well, maybe purchasing I'm kind of hitting on, but we're filling the gap, right? Like you're gonna sounds like you're just bolting things on, having them do some custom work on the system to continue to
Yeah,
expand where it's disconnected or feels like it could be more connected." So, yeah,
yeah. And they've done such a great job of building their. Before we used to be able to say, "Hey, I need that," and he'd turn it around and give it to us in days. But now he's got such a large
yeah,
customer base, and or if it's not high priority, we gotta be a little patient with it, but it'll come and it'll be done right. And you gotta love when you got vendors like that you can lean on, and
yes,
suppliers. And
yes, and
yeah,
including IT. I know that all I mentioned when we talked previously that yeah, it's kind of our world as well. So I understand what you're saying completely. And so I take it that's where your team, when they need information fast, that's where they go to. Do you have any other systems that outside of that still using Excel spreadsheets? So is accounting bolted into that? Is it all? Is it just slowly
no,
working?
we run a different accounting system,
Hmm.
but the two talk to
Oh,
each other very well. Like we can import and export invoices,
perfect.
and like they've built I can't remember the name for it, but it's
Hmm.
you know kind of a bridge to so that the import process from one to the other is smoother. And and then but our we have to have that kind of middle. The accounting piece has to
Yeah,
be its own.
yeah,
And but never
yeah.
say never. You never know what'll come down the line, and maybe it will include that at one day. But right now, we really only have two software systems
That's
that we
great.
we use
Good for you.
primarily.
Well, you've
So
streamlined just saying that on and of itself. I always tell people in software, it's sort of like when you're maybe have a living room that you're trying to like put furniture in for the first time. Like you have to start somewhere. And sometimes you start with a sofa. Sometimes you fell in love with a picture and you're going to just build a room around that or a rug. And like, sounds like you found this software and now you've been able to sort of build around it and you're continuing to kind of like make it look pretty and do better all around it.
yeah, and the cool thing is, it was the father of one of my son's best friends, and we used to coach hockey together.
Right.
And so it's nice seeing someone close be successful and be able to help them be part of their
Mhm.
process as
What
well.
do you like best about, or what do you think, speaking to other people who might be listening, if they were maybe they're still where you were. They're using the Excel spreadsheets and they're using Google Docs and they're using whatever to just manage it. What any advice for them as far as like and not necessarily in your industry, more in a macro perspective, like what would you say? Because there's got to be tremendous ROI with what you're, the system that you built. Do you encourage them to tap into that, to go find it? And, or would you say just keep doing it until a certain point? Like, what would you maybe say to them?
Yeah. Well, the oil and gas industry specifically requires a high level of almost traceability and documentation, and like even things like like procedures and policies, like having quick access, and the guys know exactly. Just like, I got to go to the safety folder. I got to click this, click down, boom, 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 you're there. And other things like our CRM, our customer resource management, is all tied into the same software as well. So it really has two things. It saved us a lot of time and energy. And when you have Excel files and all that stuff, you're constantly editing them, and then you get different versions of them kicking around. And that's been a real struggle. So it saves you a whole bunch of time and energy. You're far more organized. Like the analytics we could pull out of this, it's just really helped us understand our company and understand our customers, who they are, where they are. Every job is tracked and logged and categorized. And so there's a whole lot of intelligence you can get out of
Mm,
it as well.
mm-hmm.
So 100%, I think investing your time and energy to getting a software, especially if you can tailor make it to your
Right,
industry.
right,
Yeah, it's definitely a
right,
game
right. And
changer.
that's where I think, I was talking to a guy earlier today and they had looked at a lot of out of box solutions. And when you can get some that's customized where it really is the square peg in the square hole, as opposed to square peg round hole. Yeah, there's just less friction, literally, right? So yeah. So if you could wave a magic wand in your operations and automate one part of your operations still yet, what would it be?
Well, one of the things where we still have a gap is our
Hmm.
section. So, but recently, of course, I mentioned our amazing financial controller. She has got us going on an HR program that works with our accounting
Perfect.
software. So that's going to really help us, with
Yes.
onboarding. bringing new staff in, making sure that there's been no gaps in their training or
Yes.
documentation or anything like that. It's going to help us share information and get a sign off that, so say you have a safety alert or something like that, it'll send it out and it'll show acknowledgement that it's
Yep.
been received. So, that would be our big gap right now is kind of HR, and but we're working on that, and I think we've got a really viable solution that's being implemented kind of right now. Started
I
a
think
few
the
weeks ago.
public would be shocked if they really could understand how much documentation has to happen behind the scenes with everything that's touched around the world. Is in the health and safety aspect alone, and the training and the boxes that have to be checked. It's mind blowing. Just all from in every industry, really, at some point where something's touched.
Yeah.
And yours is a little, obviously, more
Yeah.
sensitive. So yeah, I think people would be shocked.
Even on the environmental side, like tracking emissions
Right.
and tracking, all that sort of stuff from,
Right.
your ESG program. And yeah, there is a lot of documentation. And I think when we got into this back in the day, you get into it, you're really good at operations. You know exactly what you're doing out in the field, and you feel so confident that you can do anything. And then you get into it and you realize how big of a hill to climb in regards to the little
Yeah.
things that,
Yes.
yeah. And we spun our wheels a lot on those little things when we were a
Yeah.
young
Yeah.
company, and learned a lot of things
Yeah,
the hard
yeah.
way.
It sounds like you've really tapped into software has just been a huge. I mean, obviously that's my passion. So I mean, maybe I'm leaning into it a little too heavy here, but like you've really found some serious efficiency with software. It sounds like significant. Like it's really making a difference for you guys.
Well, our industry is ultra competitive, like ultra competitive. We have tons of competitors. A lot of them are very good competitors as well. And any little advantage you can get, our customers demand that we do things as efficiently and effectively and safely as possible. And man, it is easy to let things fall through the cracks if you don't have the
Hmm.
power to organize it and log it. And if it's not written down or you can't resource or pull it up somehow, then it's just doesn't matter. It's not
Yeah, there was a
valid.
guy.
No matter how good your
Right. I was
intentions
talking
are.
to somebody the other day, and they were talking about that it saved them like 5 minutes per because they had everybody's using these Excel spreadsheets you described a minute ago, and they were saying it saved them 5 minutes with this one adaptation to their system like you have. It was across 500 people globally. And they said you can't put a price on that when you multiply that out. And now, obviously, it's a compounding effect, right? Like, because you guys are able to now be more efficient, which makes you better, which gets you more customers, which, it's just success begets success.
Well, and it has to keep evolving too, right?
Mm,
Like little things like timesheets and even going from 50 people to 80 people, we
mm.
realize like, boy, if we don't get more efficient at this or find some new ways to handle this task and that task, is we're going to bury ourselves here and not be able to keep up. And we've managed to basically increase the company by 50% and added one admin
Wow.
person.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's pretty remarkable and a real testament to how organized and detailed and proactive our
Right. And
team
if
has
you
been.
try to quantify that, right? 50% times the staff it would have taken. I mean, you're talking
Mhm.
$1,000,000, who knows, right? It's like it's crazy, doc. It's crazy the amount.
Yeah, like I think Nicole could speak a lot more detailed on this because she's in charge of the whole administrative section, and but even the importing of the invoices and stuff, and how much easier it is to just crank out an invoice instead of spending say 8 or 10 minutes on an invoice, you're spending 2 or 3. You go from doing, like, we'll do 300 plus invoices a month, and maybe even more. So it can turn into a beast where one person, that's all they do full time. But every time you can tighten that up a little bit, then you end up freeing up some time for some of the other little things that quite often get
Yeah, guy I
overlooked as
talked
well.
to earlier today, he's like, now I just push less buttons. It's less, says before it was click, 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 and now it's just one click. So yeah. So what's keeping you awake at 2 a.m. in the morning these days? What types of, operational
Hmm.
things you're like, oh man,
Hmm.
this is one I can't seem to get to, keeping me awake at night.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier that I grew up on a farm and I was never too keen on farming. I just, you're too many variables. You got the markets, you got the weather, you got all these things that are kind of out of your control, right? And then lo and behold, I get in the oil and gas industry and it's the same damn thing. You get the weather is a big deal. it can stop us cold. The market conditions, like, man, you look around the globe right now and the amount of stuff happening, big stuff happening, can have major impacts on our business and, commodity prices and everything. So that's the stuff that's out of your control is the stuff that kind of weighs
Mm-hmm.
on you, and makes you, that when something within your control, you can always justify that, okay, I just gotta figure it
Mm-hmm.
out.
Um, are you running any labor issues where you're at in your neck of the?
You know, it's labor has been a constant source of, stress for years up here. The blue collar jobs aren't really sought after. It seems like I think you could go from the trades like plumbing, heating, electricians. I think we all struggle to fill blue collar positions. And that might be changing somewhat, because you can make a darn good living these days by being good with your hands and having a good work ethic. But yeah, it's tight. It's really tight, especially up, the farther north you go, it seems like it's
Mm-hmm.
even harder. And then, you can't just hire anybody. You have to hire people that are trained. We do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
in-house training, so we do hire green people, but there's a lot of testing that has to happen. There's drug and alcohol
Mm-hmm.
testing. There's, fit testing. There's, all these things to just get an employee to week number two, and then you spend a lot of time and energy getting them there and money. And then sometimes they don't make it past
Yes.
week number
Yeah.
three, it's cyclical. But with all that in mind, I feel like we've been very fortunate and, we're quite well staffed considering, I think if I looked at our peers and stuff like that, we'd be, as good or better. And we're pretty proud of that. We work on.
Um, and then in terms of, wanted to jump back to what you were talking about earlier with your system. What reporting do you tend to rely on the most, specifically in your role?
Well, I think I mentioned our contract CFO, and he has been, in 2019, 18, 19, we went through some struggles. And again, that was primarily growing pains and not knowing our business well enough there's an old saying that revenue hides a lot of mistakes. And I believe that was true in our case as well. We were doing pretty good generating revenue. We just weren't very good at keeping any of it. So we had to change and learn. And the this fellow that we use now, he's just wonderful. He's a mentor. He's a teacher. He's just fantastic. And he's built some great tools for us in regards to forecasting. So I'm very
Mm-hmm.
data driven. I like to see things line up. I'm very goal driven as well. So I keep very good tabs on our expenses and on our financial performance, our utilization. Um,
Mm-hmm.
those types of things. So I got some really powerful tools I use that Wayne's helped build for us, and really leaning on him and his
Mm-hmm.
expertise and what he's seen in the past, and then Nicole's skill to pull it all together. And so yeah, very much data driven. And then there's always the odd operational thing. As time goes on, I'm trying a bit more to step away from the operation stuff because sometimes there's too many cooks in the kitchen and we've got a strong operational team as it is. That's probably the hardest thing that I've been stepping away from because I enjoy it the most, but they're doing an amazing job, so they don't need
Mm-hmm.
to be involved. So,
Very good. Last question. Are you guys using AI at all? And are you relying on it? And if so, how are you using it?
Stats Canada sent a survey out the other day and they kept sending it, sending it, sending it. And I just kind of ignored it. So finally I decided I should probably fill this thing out so I got into it, and a lot of it was about AI. And I'll be honest, like in our industry, it's very much service based. And I don't really know enough about AI at this time to figure out even how to implement it or utilize it properly. And I don't think that's the right answer,
Sure.
but that's the truth. So I think it's something that we're going to have to learn a lot more about and figure out if there is an application in our industry. And our competitors are certainly going to be doing the same thing, and we all push each other. So it'll come to light eventually, but it's not something we're currently,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Actively pursuing it and stuff like that.
anticipating or working towards.
That's the answer. It is what it is, and it's good. I know sometimes I've talked to people and they're like, well, we just use, one lady said she runs a pretty good sized company. And she's like, we all use it, but really for all the basic functionality. ChatGPT,
Yeah,
right?
like we all dabble.
Exactly.
we all, we have all used it for certain things, but I know we're not using it to even a small percentage of its
Yep. Yep.
capability.
Yep. Exactly. There's ways to, and I think you're right. I think it takes just dabbling. I think that's where you start personally. I think you dabble and you keep dabbling and you look for, you read an article and it says try this and try that. So yeah, I keep
Problem is,
tripping over it.
it's gonna evolve so
I
fast you
know. And
can't
yet
keep
at the
up.
same
You
time,
know,
you got to keep tripping over opportunities with it too at the same time to at least try not to be like our grandparents were with technology and, maybe some cases still are.
yeah.
So yeah.
I do know I just turned 50, so I kind of starting to feel like a little bit like an old person. But now I kind of know how our parents felt and stuff. With this all this new stuff, and it is intimidating. It's almost
Yeah.
scary. So, but if you don't embrace it and don't, it, it's a lot scarier when you don't
Yeah.
know about it. So I think just
Yeah.
educating ourselves
I
and
know one of the guys
yeah,
I follow said the other day he gave a prompt, AI, I think it was ChatGPT. He gave it a 45-minute prompt. He took 45 minutes to make the prompt. And his big thing is it's really going to be learning about how to be a good prompter. That's the future. So trying
mm,
to, that old
yeah,
help me to
yeah,
help you kind of thing. So you got to help it help you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is pretty cool what you can do just on a basic, simple basis. But you sound like you've really come a long ways in the last few years. Kudos to you guys for killing it on finding those efficiencies so quickly in your journey and jumping all over it and staying on top of it as well. So many companies don't do that, so this is good. Today's been
Well, I don't know if it was quickly because it took
right.
us a lot of years. We started in 2008, right? And we did a lot of fumbling, but the smartest thing we ever did was seek help and get people because you can waste so much time trying to do things
Yeah.
you're not good at. And then you get the right person in there and they show you how to do it and it's done way better than you ever could. That has been the real secret recipe is being open to others and
Yeah.
learning and
What advice would you give somebody who's coming up through the ranks and they want to maybe be sit in your seat someday? Any thoughts?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, I'd say just try a
Uh-huh.
lot of things, and always consider the worst case
Mhm.
scenario, and if you're prepared to deal with that,
Mhm.
and how you would deal with that, and try and factor that in, and understand not all your decisions are
Mhm.
going to be great, and but if you're not trying new things or trying to improve or learn, you're just going to be stagnant, and that's kind of my number one nemesis is I hate standing still and not getting
Mhm.
anything accomplished.
Mhm.
So that would be the number one thing. And number two would be just what I said earlier is don't be afraid to ask
Mhm.
for help and get the right
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
involved.
Well, it sounds like you did just that, so that's good. Thanks for walking us through all that. You gave us kind of a really honest picture of how your business actually runs and not just how it looks on a website. And that's actually kind of why we do this show. Every company's got its own unique operations and the patterns underneath it are surprisingly similar, but a lot of operators are going to recognize themselves in what you shared today. And I really appreciate you taking time. So this has been great. So thank you.
We're pretty proud of our little company and it's always fun to
Yeah.
talk about it
Yeah.
and share some of our successes
Yeah.
and struggles and
Yeah.
those sort of
Thank
things.
you.
So
Thank you
thank you.
very much. Appreciate it.
All right, David.